USED staff already had their hands full treating patients presenting with influenza. Now there is another pathogen to be concerned about, a novel coronavirus. Everything seemed so simple, and the future overwhelmingly optimistic as we stood together and took the physician's oath into our hearts and our minds. I didn't know then that the people surrounding me would become my brothers and sisters in this war on COVID and science. It is from this sacred place that I write with the utmost urgency and sincerity. I plead with the American people to open themselves and read these words. As a people, we need to come together. We need to see public health efforts as just that. Public health efforts, and not as dividing lines in politics. Our governor, Gavin Newsom, issued shelter in place. The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, said older Americans were precious. I appreciate that there's still room for me. I am in my 94th year, March 17th, 2020. As a new strand of coronavirus emerges from the UK, there are now new concerns and a new fight to wear masks in public. Masks have been scientifically shown to reduce transmission rate among droplet transmission viruses, and that science is not a joke. And furthermore, masks are not a political issue, they are a matter of safety. It's not about red or blue. It's about our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our daughters. It's about our families and all the people they interact with. It's about us as a people. Articles from the New York Times, The Intelligencer, USA Today, and the New York Post are woven together to create a program. Because we need to look at our health policies without the guise of politics. The coronavirus looks like a dog toy or a child's koosh ball with its primary color and fanciful shape. How can something so whimsical be so insidious? A viral Facebook meme claims to quote Pope Francis, calling people who refuse to wear masks and prevent the spread of COVID-19 selfish. This quote comes from Pope Francis's book, Let Us Dream, The Path to a Better Future, which hit bookshelves on Tuesday. Full quote on page 27 of the book reads, "You'll never find such people demonstrating, protesting the death of George Floyd, or joining a demonstration because there are shanty towns where children lack water or education, or because there are families who have lost their income. You won't find them protesting that the astonishing amount spent on the arms trade could be used to feed the whole of the human race and school every child. On such matters they would never protest. They are incapable of moving outside their little world of interests." Claims that masks are dangerous are dangerously incorrect, says Dr. Peter Hotez, professor and dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine of the Baylor College of Medicine. In general, for a person who's healthy or an individual with moderate levels of disability, there is no health contradictions that I'm aware of. This is the price we pay for underpaying high school science teachers. The public health initiatives have been leveraged into political platforms. I urge you to consider this. Your life and you are more important than a vote. I urge you to realize that medicine is not a business because human life is not a commodity. Yet lives are being reduced to red and blue lines and a black bubble on a ballot. Our cure will come only once the human lives around us become at least as important to us. Can the government legally force you to wear a mask? The answer is yes. In a pandemic, governments have the authority to do a lot of things that would otherwise be questionable. Think of it like this. The government has the right to ban smoking in public places because your smoking can affect my health. And some places have signs that say no shoes, no shirt, no service. Just add no mask to the sign. In the hospital, they'll bring in a tripod and put an iPad on it so the family can see the patient. Well, right as this patient was FaceTiming them, his heart stopped. I run into the room and I take over chest compressions. And I accidentally knocked over the iPad so it fell facing the wall. And eventually they call the code. Time of death. I see the iPad and I realize shit. It's still on. Eventually the doctor sees and he goes over to give him the bad news. And I just hear him scream. Screaming and wailing over FaceTime. Much of our fear is unspoken, for there is at last the weight of custom, the tender of rote consolation. We endure thoughts of demise and measure the distance of death. Death too wears a mask. Do you have the constitutional right to not wear a mask? The answer is no. Governments have the power to regulate in the name of safety. If reason alone were enough to convince people to care for themselves and others, then experts could post the evidence that masks reduce transmission of the virus, and that would be enough. But research on seatbelt use and childhood vaccinations show that when the governments make safety mandatory, people pay more attention. If only 1% of people in Utah die, why don't we just have rave parties? All get together and who gets sick, and most people won't die, and we'll get over it. My plea is please don't do that. The people who get sick with COVID are very, very sick, and each one is heartbreaking. I wish you could see what it's like to see someone who got COVID. They're in the ICU all alone. No visitors nowadays. All alone, writing goodbye notes to their children. I wish you could see the fear in the family's eyes when someone is transferred to the intensive care unit, afraid they're going to die. Just when you think someone is getting better, their lungs are starting to improve. Then their heart stops, and they're gone. I don't want to play God. I've cried in stairwells and hallways. Life is fragile, and it could be anybody. It could be any of us. There are days I'm convinced I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna die, but yeah, I think that's more emotional than scientific. A weary UK doctor walked out of the hospital where he spent New Year's Eve treating COVID-19 patients and into a crowd of maskless protesters shouting, "COVID is a hoax." If it's a hoax, let's take all these imbeciles inside the COVID ward without PPE. Let's see how brave they feel when they're confronted with the reality of people choking to death. Perhaps these sentiments were best expressed by yet another piece of cloth. The jacket First Lady Melania Trump wore when she visited the detained immigrant children at the US-Mexico border. I don't really care. Do you?